Hello again, friends. It is me, Taylor Waits, aka your lesbian cousin in grad school, here to spill the tea on all things from proposal to candidacy. I am trying to use my experience as a Black queer woman to emphasize the super important point that it's really important to hear from all types of people from different experiences when going into a PhD program. I'm in an English PhD program, a humanities program. Other programs, depending on the discipline, are also going to be different. However, it's important to hear from people who both share your experiences as well as lie outside of your experiences. So how I feel this video is doing is it's simply adding to that collective of stories with my own. I'm just adding my own experience on top of all the many experiences people have of having a PhD. Nothing I say is permanent or indicative of what your experience or what other people's experiences may or may not be. Basically, not every Black queer woman's experience of grad school is going to resonate with lots of people or anyone, but it will always be valid, right? No matter if it resonates with you or not, it's important. So I want to start this video off by extending just a huge, humongous thank you to all of my supports, because without my number one thing with going into a PhD program, really in any major life event, whether you're moving or whatever else it may be, establish clear support. You need people who are in your program. Shout out to everybody, you know who you are. You need people outside of your program. You need people in the real world, as we call it as academics, like people who aren't in the ivory tower. You need people who are really enmeshed in it and know it in and out. All of it is really important. So if you're going into a PhD basically alone, just know that it's going to be really hard. It's a huge investment. Selling your labor, your intellectual property, organizing around it, creating works behind it, all of that is really important, and you only want people that you trust, and that are not going to allow you to burn out so easily, right? So that's what we're looking for. Just know that it takes time and dedication, and I really wouldn't be able to do it without my day ones, without my ace boon coons. So I love them. That light is also going to flicker, but it's okay. I'm moving soon, as I'll say, which is indicative to this. So the first part that I want to talk about, and I'll put on the screen, is the proposal. You have proposal and coursework. Writing a proposal is the same as pitching an idea. If you're a writer and you have to write pitches, if you're in film school and you write pitches, if you are in business and you have to frequently write proposals, that is the point of this. You don't need to be sure of said idea or what you'll need to get to the idea, but you do need to have a clear direction as to where you and your work want to go. A great question that I got from my writing coach, Hannah Echo, is whenever you're writing a piece or even doing music or artistry, where on the shelf would it be? If I'm going to the store to pick out your project, what shelf would I look at? What area would it be in? And if you are a writer, think of a bookstore. What genre? Where would I walk in the bookstore to see your book? So it's important that you have that up. And that's what the proposal is for. It's helping you get to that direction. It should be helpful, right? Especially in the beginning. If you want to do a PhD just to flesh out a piece of work, you've already begun research, you've already started writing, and you just want to flesh that out, and sell it to a certain audience, that would be the time when you're who is that audience? Who is this piece for? Who is it that I need help with, making this happen? You can start to think what that actually looks like, what the time is going to look like. Then, if you're like me and you kind of know you just want to get a PhD, both because you want a higher pay raise and you're kind of cool with the field that you're already in, but you don't really have an idea, now is, you basically came to PhD to stack your resume or to get a varied experience. This is the time for you to figure out what is the field that you're going into? What is it that you want to do? Some people want to be on tenure track and they want to be professors, but there's way more alt academics, I would say, nowadays who are I'm here because I want the pay raise. I'm here because I know in 3 to 4 years my job would force me to get a higher education anyway. And PhDs, most of the time, a lot of PhD programs are funded, so that way you don't have to pay for them. They pay you. Now, obviously, they don't pay you a lot, so a lot of people go into debt or get loans or have to ask for a lot of help or have partners, if we're honest. A lot of people are married to people who have money or who have good jobs. which is one of the reasons why education is so elitist and hard to get to. Like, you have to have the space to do that. But the first 2 years, first 3 years, however long it takes you to get your coursework done, that's really what it's for, right? I didn't want to get an education degree because teaching is not what I want to, like, make my money doing. Teaching is something that I'm, like, really passionate about, but more so it's a practice that I'm really interested in, right? And just because I'm a good teacher doesn't mean I need to throw myself into the world of teaching, especially since we know teaching is, like, a bunch of work that you do that you really aren't praised or given enough money to do. And I really want to change that about the field. The idea that teachers are like these saints, kind of like similar with sexual assault, where people are like, it's the perfect victim. This person has to be a good person or has to have good morals in order to be a teacher. And it's like, why can't people just work? You don't have to like want to save children to be a teacher. And most teachers are pieces of shit who definitely maybe started out wanting to save the world or whatever, but because they didn't really unpack who they want to be and what they want to be, they thought they'd be able to do that with a bunch of black kids in the middle of a city. Like, that's how you get savior complexes. That's how you get people thinking, you know, that they're needed or that they were called to do the work instead of like just being really underpaid. Like, we're just severely underpaid. So teaching until that field just sort of like becomes better for and like more accepting for teachers and more resources, I think I can work outside of it to try and like make it better, right? So what I really want to focus on is curriculum and instruction, which is really multidisciplinary. Like, curriculum and instruction is a very large field, instead of teaching, which is very like one note in my opinion. I'm at a historically white and department as well as a historically white school. I go to the University of Pittsburgh. So every year it's like a huge thing that the classes are really boring and like really white centered. That's like the complaint. Even the white people are like, these are really boring. These are really white centered. Like, none of these are really like pushing the dial. I don't really fault the teachers for that. 'Cause like I said, being a professor is having a lot of deadlines. And they kind of expect you to teach on this like new age thing. And when you're coming to our institution, it's because you're bringing students who want to learn from you. So they're trying their best to come up with ideas that the department thinks are like cutting edge. But since it's not practiced to actually like talk to your students about what they want to learn, you still end up dropping the ball. So yeah, and we don't have a lot of people of color in my department, so there's not going to be a lot of classes that reflect that. And the people that do get here usually leave within like 3 or 4 years because either the city's too racist and boring or they don't have like the resources we need. So that's why I'm like, teaching is really a non-forgiving field, and I don't necessarily want to bank my money on that, on my elasticity as a black queer woman in teaching in a public space, which we know probably won't last very long. And I just know a lot of academics who are like, yeah, I couldn't do that portion of it. So yeah, just hearing in general how academics are doing in 2023 doesn't really fare too well with me. Even the white ones aren't really enjoying it. You know, one of the things my chair always says is the academy is a cult. It's a bunch of people wanting you to act and to be a certain way. And you know, she has her qualms with it, and she's a white woman. So if the white women are saying it's desperate and elitist, which makes you think it's any better for the black people? So I'm still sure, you know, based off of that I definitely don't want to work in the academy, and I've been in this program for 4 years, and I never wanted to work in the academy. When I started, I kind of was thinking about it, but yeah, definitely after 4 years of working with strictly academics, like, you will never catch me in an academic setting unless the money is good and it's for a certain amount of time. I would definitely do a postdoc or like a research opportunity, but not full tenure track. Like, no, I don't ever see myself producing that. I don't want to work in the academy teaching grad students and producing work. Like, I really don't want to do that. Fuck no. So sorry if you are like one of those people that are on the way to tenure track. You were expecting me to kind of talk about my way to tenure and like my portfolio and things like that. I'm very alt academic. This is all academic on this page, so I'm not going to be talking about that. I'd find another grad school cousin to spill the tea about that, though, because it is important, if you are interested in taking the tenure track and in working in the academy, that we have you there, especially if you're a person of color, especially if you're a marginalized person, especially if you're a queer person. We'd love to see you in the academy. We definitely need more people, but I'm not going to go down in history convincing people to join and be in the academy. Not Taylor Waits, okay? That's not going to happen. But summary, coursework is really dependent on the institution, but you know, my experience was pretty stale. I wouldn't do it again. I definitely don't think that coursework really makes any sense, because I just think that everyone should be hyper focused on their project for 5 years instead of like having all these little distractions from the reason why you're there. So The only thing I can say about coursework is good luck. And throughout coursework, you should be thinking of what is this main idea? Where do I see myself going? Where do I see my work going? And if that's really the only thing you have is like, I know where I'm going, but I don't really know what this is, that's a great place to be at a proposal stage. So you've taken the classes, you're in year 2 or you're in year 3, and now you're going to start talking about your exams and your reading list. So that's the next section, exams and reading list. So once you get an idea of where you're going and you discuss with your proposal committee, hey, this is kind of the ideas I have, this is where I'm at, they'll give you a bunch of readings that they think will be helpful. You'll go and look out, for readings on your own, and then you'll start reading those things. So that's called a reading list. Once you develop that reading list, you are going to start reading all of those readings and fleshing out your work, and adding and taking away and highlighting and rereading. You can read through all this shit, right, until you find like maybe 2 to 5 sources that are really the meat and the bones of your argument and what it is that you want to write about, or what's the backbone of your project. And then you just read them shits like over and over and over and over and over and over again until you know them like the back of your hand, until you're an expert in the subject. And then they will test you in those things that you have said you are now an expert in. And after you have tested and you go through your exam process, which I have a whole video on, then you're on to your prospectus. So this whole portion is something that happens usually as you're getting out of coursework, because you've been through coursework and technically you've seen all these syllabuses that have inspired you. Like I said, for me, everything was pretty stale. I didn't find anything on a syllabus in grad school that I didn't already encounter through another amazing professor or through somebody, or just through my own work of just reading and writing. So I wouldn't say that classwork really helped me with that. I would say it was more so me coming into my program with like very clear readings that kind of map out who I am as an educator as well as like a researcher. So Bell Hooks is always in my back pocket, Nikki Giovanni, a lot of Black feminists, obviously. But I also have been picking up a lot since working here, which my school didn't do a good job of like exposing me to, but disability works. Different accessibility conversations. A lot of Indigenous people do a lot of work around culture building and around unlearning and decolonization work. So there's all these other places that I've discovered through my own findings and through some really great recommendations from my committee. But for the most part, a lot of the readings that are on my dissertation reading list are the same things that I came in here interested in, So you kind of got to stick to your guns on that. But after you finish all that, and you go to your exam portion and you do the written exam and then you do the oral exam, your proposal committee or your exam committee is going to say, wow, you really are an expert in this area. I would be proud to have you as a colleague. Let's work out and flesh out what it is that this actual dissertation project is going to be, which is the prospectus, which is the last part. Prospectus. That's right before you get to become a candidate. So you have to pass your prospectus in order to be passed or to put an admission into candidacy, right? So the prospectus portion of all this is probably the most asinine portion of it, in my opinion, of the entire PhD process, just because after you've already, like I said, fleshed out, learned, gained expertise on, and then come to conclusions about the idea you want to do, that's when they ask you the existential, like, nigga, are you sure? Maybe this isn't the field for you. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe this work doesn't really work there, and you just start second guessing everything you've done. So I think it's a really big hurdle. A lot of people I know kind of get caught up on it and end up changing their ideas or want to change like their whole committee, when it's really just supposed to be like a solidification as to what we've said. And that's what it felt like for me. It took me maybe a week or 2 to write it. Once we all got together and we had the meeting about it, it took them, 10 to 15 minutes to make a conclusion, and we were ready to move on. Like, everyone was sort of like, we're kind of over talking about it. Let's start working on it. So that was fun, and that worked out. I thought I was done asking that question, like, is this what I want to do? Are you sure? But this time, right before you get into the final, like, year of doing your work, you ask yourself again, is this what I want to do? And I feel really secure in who I am as well as the work that I do. So you basically resubmit everything, right, into a condensed document, where this project is going. Think of it as like you're applying to a fellowship. They want to know the scope. What is it going to do for me? How much money can this bring in, or how much is it going to cost me? Who are you going to be collaborating with or working with? And what's next after that. So that's a really good part. Then after that, what direction yeah, you know what direction your committee's pushing you towards or where you want to be. You know what places you want to apply to, or like what jobs you're looking for, what's up next. And then the next year should feel or look like that plan that you've outlined in the prospectus. So, you know, I'm going to do an interview project. It's going to take me 6 months to do the interviews. Then I'm going to do the data. I'm going to defend in April. And I'm going to start applying to jobs in January. Then everybody's like, yeah, makes sense. Sounds good to me, right? After everyone is sure about that, like, Taylor, that makes a lot of sense. We definitely think you can do this in a year. Here are some things that we think we can equip you with so that you can move forward. We're now past you to candidacy, then you apply for candidacy. And that's where I am now. I'm officially a candidate, which is great. Which means that for me, that's about like a year mark from where I want to be finished. Like a year from this month, I want to be done. So I want to be defending in April of 2024. I'm hoping a year from now, I'm having all good news as to me having defended, me finding a job, me moving on with my life. That is like the goal at the end of a PhD, is to be able to say, I went, I studied, I'm an expert now, and I've been employed. That's all any grad student wants to hear. That's what all PhD students want to hear at the end of their dissertation phase. So the next year I'll be documenting like my process, both writing wise as well as like psychologically, how I'm planning this dissertation project. It's not going to be a manuscript. I'm not writing like a book's worth of anything. I more so am doing a digital project that's like a historical account of a student movement at Syracuse University called the Not Again SU movement. And I just want to get the students' perspective. If you've been watching this channel for a little bit, if you have read any of my writings since I've been a scholar, since I was in, undergrad, you can see that I'm always interested in what the students have to say and what the students want and what the student activists are talking about, because of course I'm a student activist and an organizer myself. And I know, and it's backed up in the literature, but I know that when we pay attention to what students need and how we can make them feel safe, then we can build and make safer spaces for everybody, no matter what the student looks or acts like. So that is my goal. I'm hoping a year from now I have all good news. But I wanted to pop in and just, so many people in the last video were telling me that they were really afraid of, and they don't see a lot of examples of Black queer people in the academy voicing their true opinions about the process as it's happening. And like I said, I have a video on my application process. I have a video on my prospectus process. I have a video on my, or not my prospectus, I have a video on my exams process. And I'm doing this summary for you now so that I can kind of demystify the idea that a PhD is like super impossible to get. It's definitely really hard. You definitely need to have a lot of support around you, but it's not undoable for somebody who is no contact with their family. And I've managed, and I run my own business. I run this. I'm a DJ. Like there's different aspects of my life, and I'm able to keep up with everything. I also think that's because I have insurance through the school and I'm able to have therapy. And even when I didn't have therapy that went through my insurance, because I have a job, which I know a lot of people don't do, or like I said, they just have really rich partners or their parents help them out. But because I have a job, I'm able to get some of the other amenities that allow me to remain a sane human being. So make sure you have support. Talk to a lot of people. If you're ever interested in knowing more about my PhD program, or whether or not getting a PhD is worth it, or what I'm seeing, the trends in the field, do I feel, excited? What am I looking for? What field am I looking in? Leave a comment, ask me. I might make a video answering all of those questions, because like I said, the last video got a lot of really good feedback of people just feeling like, you really demystified this for me, or I'm still really scared, or I definitely am not going to do this year, but I'm going to do it soon. And no matter what point in time you decide to go to grad school, if you choose to go to grad school, just know, it's your right to be there. It's your right to be respected, especially if you're queer, especially if you're of color. It is your right to do and study what you want, unfettered. And if people are continuously trying to stop you from doing that, that might not be the space for you. But yeah, this is another video I wanted to just sort of summarize. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for everybody who subscribed and who continues to watch. I'm going to upload more videos as I continue to put my mind towards finishing up this program and moving on with my life. So thank you so much for keeping up. Thank you for your support. If you want to follow me on Patreon, where I have I'm going to be discussing my creative projects that I have coming up. I have a show, if you don't already know, A Day in the Life, that is a small series, a short series, 6-part series about a serial killer in Pittsburgh. I have a couple of children's books, graphic novels, and fictional stories, as well as scripts that I'm working through. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, please subscribe to my Patreon. The cheapest level is $3. So, subscribe, give me $3 a month. It'll help me to buy my medicine so I can stay alive and stay sane throughout this program. And yeah, continue to support in any way that you can. I once again want to say thank you for joining me, and I hope everybody has a great, today's Sunday. I think I'm going to upload it on Sunday too. Hope everybody has a great Sunday. Bye. My Doge.